Hello and welcome to The Print. This is Ratan, Priya, and today's on our soft cover we have Amitava Kumar with his new book, The Green Book, with us. Hello Amitav, welcome to the show.
Hi. Great to be here.
Would you like to introduce our viewers to your book? What is this about and how did you come up with the inspiration to write it? Anything you can tell us?
Sure. It's a part of a series. It's a part of a trilogy, although it is also in some ways a standalone book. But let me just give you a minute's introduction to what precedes it. I started with a book called The Blue Book, which was a record of my drawings and diary entries during the pandemic. And that came out 3 years ago. And then the following year, I wrote something called The Yellow Book. While the Blue Book had been a writer's notebook, that's how it had been presented, a writer's diary, I believe. The Yellow Book was, as a professor, I had taken my students to London, and the Yellow Book was called a traveler's journal. And I had taken them to London. I wrote about my experiences there and other travels in India. But in this one, first let's remember, when you mix blue and yellow, you get green. So this was the inevitable result. But apart from that, I was also interested in addressing issues of the environment, ecology, greenness in other forms, as in youthful love. So that's how it came about. I, for example, thought I should do paintings about trees or paintings in the parks, in Central Park in New York, but also my travel down the course of the Ganges in small towns and cities, stuff like that. So that's what it is in broad terms, a result of.
Yeah. Also, to inform our viewers, there is this, before we get into other things, there is this page in the book where it's a picture of you in a hat, and it says, Amitava wants to catch what happens in between, floating, falling.
वो मेरी तस्वीर नहीं है. That is actually my friend Rajkamal Jha. What I have done is, it is a part of a longer project where I have people, I take their pictures. And then I tell them, I give them my pen in my iPad, it's like this. Yeah. And so I tell them, I take the pictures, whoever it is, and I tell them to write in their own handwriting something about themselves, So for example, the other day I was in Goa. I took a picture of 2 migrant workers from Bihar. And I asked one of them, the only one who could write there, to tell me a little bit about his life. And so he did. So that's also a little, it's a different visual project that I have started. But yes, sure.
Looking at the book and the visual properties of it, the paintings, the pictures, even the pictures of the book, the notebooks and all the things that you gathered in the British Library, it feels like as an artist, your life is always active. How are you able to do that? Do you not take breaks between your creative moments and then you do life, or you do life and then you do art simultaneously?
Yeah, I know what you're asking. I think life for an artist or a writer is indivisible from art. 15 minutes ago, I was drinking tea. I'm traveling right now. I was drinking tea in a hotel nearby, in a bar, and I looked across. I had thought that I was going to get this tea simply to just rest before my conversation with you. But then across from it, I saw that the local police was putting up Christmas lights on the police station, around the tree outside it. And I thought, okay, I should note that down. So I was relaxing, but then I made little notes in my diary. And by the time I came down to come to this Airbnb to have my conversation with you, when I came down on the street, I saw that they had also put up a Christmas star, a giant lantern, and it said, Say no to drugs 2025. And I thought, well, let me just make a note. I don't know what use it is, but what I'm saying
Yeah,
is
it's a
I
scene, and
wasn't
you wrote it down.
say. Cops in khaki clad uniforms tying up fairy lights. That was a scene. You're right.
With the sign
That's
of
it.
warning.
Bus. And so I thought I should write it down. So yeah,
This
there is no break. Yeah.
this brings us to the note keeping part in your book, which I found the most interesting. As a journalist, as a writer, we people like us are into a very regular habit of noting things down, and you've quoted and referenced very wide selection of authors and people that keep notebooks now, and then some parts of the notebooks make it to their real books, and then some parts don't.
Say.
There's this another thing that Joan Didion, she wrote one essay on note keeping, and she said that I don't do this to remember things. It's just something that happens to me, and I have to write it down. So the thing that you did right now when you were sitting outside and drinking your tea, is this something you did to remember later on, or just out of habit because something happened in front of you, so you have to document it? Is it like that?
It is what a friend of mine, Amit Verma, who's a podcaster, would call riyaz. It is like doing riyaz. वो practice कर रहा है, वो riyaz है. You just keep writing. But there are some things that I have to admit, I write in order not to ever forget. Okay.
Right.
But it is also riyaz. It is just like, बैठे हैं भाई. So I have got, for example, today, while waiting for my lunch to arrive there were two ladies. तो मैं उनकी drawing कर रहा था.
Lovely drawing.
You are so sweet. I had ordered roti and bhindi fry
Okay.
and curd, and I thought while it was being made, चलो भाई तेरी तस्वीर बनाते हैं तो जरा एक हाथ में a certain movement जो है वो बनता रहे, जैसे कि
Yeah.
I'm because of your question, I'm trying to look back in the last couple of days कि ऐसी कोई चीज मैंने लिखी हो. Did I write something because I wanted to remember? And yes, I have found something. So yesterday I was in Goa, and the day before I went to see an exhibit of drawings by the artist Bhupen Khakar. ठीक है? So I saw on the wall there a quote by Khakar, which I thought, अरे यार ये तो लिख लेना चाहिए ताकि I should remember it. So I'll read out to you so that you know there are some things I write just to remember.
Okay.
And an artist, so this is Bhupen Khakar saying, an artist should not preach, talk philosophy, try to reform society, because he constantly revels in illogicality, sensuality, and vulgarity. ठीक है? तो अगर आप जरा आइडियलिस्टिक हैं तो आपको ये बात जरा ठीक नहीं लगे, but I could understand where he is coming from. You know what I'm saying? नहीं, अगर हो भी तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं, मैं हूँ थोड़ी सी, लेकिन I thought I can understand. Here was a gay artist who just wanted to say कि यार तुम अपनी ऊंची पॉलिटिक्स अपने पास रखो, मैं अपनी जरा illogical, or what would be considered illogical or vulgar or sensual part of me, I am going to embrace that as my artistic identity. This is what Khakar is saying. And I see his point. And I hope there is a little Khakar inside of me too.
Don't we all hope to be able to, to be open with that, whatever we make is authentic. That's all we want.
सही बात है.
So Amitav, in your book, I also saw this thing very interesting, that you keep going back to your old books that you've written and the thoughts that you were having then. So my question to you is, does an author ever leave his books, or they become part of him going forward?
Yes. I felt that my references were not so much to long ago works, though that might be correct, I have no idea. I
But
felt I was
feelings and the observations you were having then when you were writing a certain piece of work,
bus
and
bus
your
bus.
observations on writing the current piece of work, sometimes they collide together, don't they?
I thought that my journals always reflect the writing I'm doing. Yani ki there is
Yeah,
meditation on what is the book I'm working on. So
yeah,
for me, this becomes this book that we are discussing, you and I today, becomes a record also कि भैया I'm writing a novel at this
yeah.
time called My Beloved Life. और उसमें क्या हो रहा है? What is it that I'm making sense of? I try to keep writing about it. And so even today, for example,
Yeah.
I don't want to keep opening my journal from today and yesterday all over again, but I
No,
did.
please do. This is interview. This interview is about your journal and your
अच्छा
journals.
अच्छा ठीक है मेरा एक दोस्त है नाइजीरियन अमेरिकन राइटर है हिज नेम इज तेजू कोल
Okay.
ठीक है तो उसने लिखा मेरी इंस्टाग्राम पर मैं हिंदी में बोलूं तो ठीक है एक दो शब्द या
हाँ,
शुड हाँ उसने देखा मेरी इंस्टाग्राम पे ये तस्वीरें जो मैं लगा रहा था एंड ही रोट आई एक्चुअली लव द फैक्ट that your trip is so various and substantial. I know you. You're going to garner a hell of a lot from it. Probably a whole book's worth. ठीक है? तो मैंने इसको जल्दी से लिख लिया ताकि मैं अपने आप को रिमाइंड कर सकूं कि भैया डोंट वेस्ट योर टाइम यू नो टेक डाउन नोट्स हाँ फिर से बोलो
A book has to come out of your travels.
सही वो अब सिर्फ इसी से नहीं मगर आई थॉट कि अगर मेरे दोस्त ने he's a wonderful writer, oh my god, he's one of the best I know, तो मुझे लगा कि अगर वो कह रहा है तो I should take a cue from that and write it down. तो अपनी जर्नल में ये भी बात मैंने रिमाइंड की कि भैया लिख लो ये चीजें. Yes, so what I'm trying to say, और ये कैसे आया? I'll tell you. I read a book. I think the writer's name is David Atwell, but it was a biography or an account of the Nobel Prize winning writer J.M. Coetzee, the South African writer J.M. Coetzee. और इस किताब में बहुत ही जिक्र था of the notes that Coetzee had made while writing some of the books that are my favorite and which I have taught in my classes, Waiting for the Barbarians, या फिर The Disgrace, या फिर Disgrace. So उसमें मैं देखा मैंने I saw that Coetzee would make notes about the decisions he was making about the plot, about the character. And it was a very active process so that the journal became an account of the changes in the writing of the book. So मैंने भी सोचा कि भाई one should learn from such masters and my journal should be an active record of a thinking through the process. कि बेटा तुम क्या कर रहे हो? You know? वैसे तो मेरे notes में कल मैं जरा एक बिलियस किस्म की बिलियस समझती हैं जैसे कि एंग्री फुल ऑफ बाइल एक रिपोर्ट मैंने अपलोड किया सबस्टैक पे अबाउट द एयरबीएनबी आई वाज इन गोवा ठीक है तो मैंने देखा है आई हैव टू एक्नॉलेज इट इज नॉट ओनली दैट आई एम राइटिंग अबाउट टेकिंग नोट्स दैट गो इनटू बुक्स आई एम राइटिंग इट इज आल्सो अबाउट दीज रैंट्स ऑन दिस रैंट दैट आई रोट यस्टरडे for Airbnb. For example, one of the lines in my journal here say, everything is covered with dust. And somehow it feels that even the dust is covered with dust. ठीक है? तो ये मैंने अपने Substack में डाल दिया on a report on my Airbnb experience. और सुनाइए.
They're definitely getting half star or something.
हाँ ये मैंने सवाल पूछा है उसमें Airbnb कि अगर आपका दिल करे that there should be no star at all ये कैसे करते हैं because in order to rate it experience you have to give it some star but what if you don't want to give it at all you know जिससे ख्याल आता है V.S. Naipaul की एक कहानी मैंने सुनी थी that he was asked to judge a poetry reading in Kenya or Uganda, ये Paul Thoreau की किताब में, and Naipaul refused to give a first prize. He said, "I will only give a second and a third." Talking about bilious people.
Speaking of Naipaul, there is this section on rules of writing, and you say that you heed Naipaul's advice that a writer, if he's not a Mahatma, should note down the names on the walls that is surrounding them.
जी
So अगर अगर हम इसको सिंपल नेम्स और डिटेल्स से लेकर scenario, politics, socio-economic environment, how much do you think a writer's account of his daily life should include the society that he is in?
Yeah. First, for your viewers, we should tell them, for your listeners, we should tell them that Naipaul's complaint about Gandhi ji was कि इन्होंने कभी वेदर का जिक्र नहीं किया. ये नहीं बताया कि भैया आप लंदन में हैं, मगर आप ये नहीं बता रहे हैं कि उस दिन गर्मी है या ठंड है, you know? Or he does not describe London streets, its houses, or even a room, the crowds. No discussion of any mode of transport, you know?
Yeah. उसको हम मेटाफोरिकल मौसम भी बोल सकते हैं, जैसे कि आप
सही बिल्कुल 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 सही बात. अब नाइपॉल को इससे बहुत क्या डिसअपॉइंटमेंट है, प्रॉब्लम. और मैं उनकी बात समझता हूँ कि अगर आप महात्मा नहीं हैं और आप महात्मा नहीं हैं, तो या हो सकता है आप हैं लेकिन मैं कम से कम नहीं हूं, तो मेरा दिल तो यही है कि भाई मैं ये बताऊं कि आज थोड़ी थोड़ी, वैसे तो मैं आई डू मेक अ पॉइंट एंड से कि भैया लेकिन गांधी जी तो was a spirit making his way towards, you know, a certain idea of morality. उनको क्यों, why should he have worried or wondered or even written down कि आज sunset 6:15 में हुई या 6:25 में? Why? You know? लेकिन हाँ, नाइपॉल की बात सही है कि भाई one should, as a writer, I do feel, और मैं अपने आप सोचने लगा कि क्या क्या चीजें लिखूंगा, तो I thought कि मेरी इर्द गिर्द जो दीवारें हैं जिन पर प्रेमी और प्रेमिकाओं ने अपने नाम स्क्रैच किए हैं, वो शायद लिखने चाहिए. द इंटरवल बिटवीन ड्रॉप्स ऑफ रेन, उसको नोट डाउन करना चाहिए भाई कि कितनी, एंड देन किस तरह से हाउ आर द ब्रांचेस डांसिंग इन द विंड, द रिंगिंग ऑफ अ बाइसिकल्स बेल, एंड द साइलेंस बिटवीन, एंड द साइलेंस आफ्टर अ राइट. क्या है, यू नो, हाउ टू राइट. And the last lines of that poem are, you'll have to write about the young woman sitting alone in the canteen and the glass of water in front of her, in which the whole world appears upside down. ये मैं actually उस समय जब, thank you, वो सब जब line लिख रहा था मैं was also thinking of a certain claim made by Naipaul in an interview that I've always cherished. Naipaul ने कहा इंटरव्यूअर से कि देखिए मैं जो लिखता हूँ, what I write, people remember because I write in scenes. These are visual pictures. ठीक है? तो वह जब मैं ये लिख रहा था तो नाइपॉल साहब की तो he had died, but I was thinking कि let me end with that poem with a scene, and a scene, the way in which I am describing, is also a visual picture. So that he would have liked. मैं उनको थोड़ा सा जानता था, and I can honestly say that when you have heroes, literary heroes, you are also sometimes writing and hoping that this will please them, you know, that you're doing what they asked you to do, that you're doing what they instructed you to do, vagara vagara.
So there's this other thing. Since you have so many talents, you can paint, draw, write.
उतना भी नहीं यार, लेकिन हाँ.
Pictures and everything. So आपको सबसे ज्यादा रिलीफ और रिलीज दोनों किस चीज में मिलता है?
जी मेरा काम तो है लेखन, राइटिंग, लेकिन it is true, and therefore the steady satisfaction is what I get from my writing. But it is true that because एक तरह से मैं ड्राइंग को एम्ब्रेस किया एज एन एमेचर, यू नो, कि भैया मैं इसमें उस्ताद नहीं हूं, मुझे कोई ट्रेनिंग भी नहीं है, ये मैं दुनिया से कह रहा हूं. आई जस्ट पेंट, यू नो, I've just been doing. So what I want to say to you is that because of that mode of entry into this art, into this practice, सबसे ज्यादा रिलीज ड्राइंग में ही मिलता है, यू नो, बिकॉज इट्स लाइक आई डोंट केयर, नो वन इज जजिंग मी। किसी से मैंने ये नहीं कहा कि भैया मुझे पैसे दो मेरे ड्राइंग्स के लिए या मुझे पब्लिश करो मेरे ड्राइंग्स के लिए, इसलिए सो आई एम जस्ट ड्राइंग विद अ सर्टेन सेंस ऑफ फ्रीडम, एक एंड दैट सेंस ऑफ लिबरेशन जो है आई आल्सो वांट टू कन्वे टू माय रीडर कि मैंने बहुत कुछ सोचा वैचा नहीं है इसमें, मैं इस तरह से बड़े ही खुले खुले एक मिजाज से ये ड्राइंग मैंने बना दी है। अब आपको भी अगर अच्छा लगे तो ठीक है, और वरना अभी आगे बढ़िए, मैं भी आगे बढ़ता हूँ। हाँ, जैसे कि अब मैंने समझिए ये, मैं अपने बीवी और बच्चों के साथ आई वेंट टू द सी, और एक स्टॉर्म किस्म का आया, और होटल के वहां के जो जहां हम ठहरे थे उनके लोगों ने कहा कि भैया आपको अंदर जाना है, ये स्टॉर्म आ गया है, आप अभी बीच पे नहीं हो सकते। अब मैं बैठा अंदर बाहर से देख रहा हूँ बालकनी से, तो मैंने सोचा कि चलो इसको पेंट कर देते हैं। हाँ, तो जल्दी से, दिस वुडंट हैव टेकन मी मोर देन अ फ्यू मिनट्स, लेकिन इट वाज एन एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ अ सर्टेन फीलिंग एंड अ सर्टेन रिस्पांस टू व्हाट आई वाज सीइंग, और एक तरह से मुझे रिलीज इसमें मिली।
That's I have my answer now.
जी,
आपने एक और बात कही है about walking. As a writer, I really found that interesting because whenever I'm stuck between thoughts or I'm procrastinating to chase a deadline, or walking helps. And you say that you also advise this to your students.
जी,
आप हमारे व्यूअर्स को और एस्पायरिंग राइटर्स को वॉकिंग एंड राइटिंग को लेकर क्या एडवाइस देंगे?
जी, जी, जी। पहले तो मेरे पास एक एडवांटेज ये है कि मैं एक छोटे से कॉलेज में पढ़ाता हूँ, जी, वैसर कॉलेज नहीं है, लेकिन एक तरह से मैंने यहाँ पर विशाल यूनिवर्सिटीज हुआ करती हैं, तो उसके पास एक इकोलॉजिकल प्रिजर्व है, इट्स कॉल्ड वैसर फार्म। तो बड़ा ही एकांत सा है, वातावरण अच्छा शांत सा है, और वहाँ की सर्टनली एटमॉस्फेयर बड़ी क्लीन है। आपको AQI क्या कहते हैं यहाँ पर, उसके बारे में आपको चिंता करने की जरूरत नहीं। सो आई गो फॉर वॉक्स देयर। एक पुलिट्जर प्राइज विनिंग जर्नलिस्ट हैं लॉरेंस राइट, उन्होंने अपने एक इंटरव्यू में कहा है कि जब उन्हें कोई दिक्कत होती है वो दौड़ने निकल जाते हैं। तो अब दौड़ना तो जरा ज्यादा इट सीम्स लाइक एन एक्सरसाइज दैट आई डोंट वांट टू डू और कैन डू, बट वॉकिंग इज अमेजिंग। तो मैं वो पढ़ के भी एक छोटा सा इंडेक्स कार्ड फोल्ड कर लेता था और एक छोटी सी गोल्फ पेंसिल अपने पॉकेट में, एंड देन आई वुड गो, और हमेशा निरंतर व्हाटएवर आई वाज वर्किंग ऑन देयर वुड बी समथिंग दैट आई वुड मेक एन एडवांस ऑन, या कहीं से जस्ट बिकॉज द माइंड वाज फ्री, कहीं से तैरती हुई एक एक शब्द, एक तैरती हुई एक सेंटेंस निकल आती थी, या फिर सम आइडिया वुड कम। सो आई से टू माई स्टूडेंट्स, और एक चीज मैंने नया ये भी किया कि फॉर माई ऑफिस आवर्स, जब फाइनल ईयर में जो ये लोग मेरे साथ मेरे लिए किताब लिख रहे हैं, जैसे 1 साल लंबा एक कोर्स में, तो फॉर माई ऑफिस आवर्स, इन्हें कि आप दोनों आदमी कुर्सी पे बैठे हो, मैं कहूंगा कि नहीं, आपको जो कॉलेज का जो लेख है वहां पे हमसे मिलिए। एंड सो मैं उनके साथ गोला गोला घूमता हूँ ताकि उनको भी एक फीलिंग हो फ्रीडम रादर देन ऑफ बीइंग कंस्ट्रेन्ड। माइंड एंड बॉडी की जो डिविजन्स है उसको जरा बैटल करना चाहिए, ये भी मैं कह रहा हूँ। आई रियली थिंक दैट 10 minutes of mindful walking is a good thing to do. More is even better, वही मैं कहना चाहता हूँ, and just a modest desire. देखिए मैं this is different from this big journal, हाँ? तो छोटा सा जर्नल जो है ना, इसमें अगर एक पेज में लिखता हूँ तो 150 वर्ड आ जाते हैं। तो मेरे स्टूडेंट्स से तो मेरी हमेशा यही एक्सपेक्टेशन कि भाई you write 150 words on this page, and you walk mindfully for 10 minutes. और अगर आप पूरी साल ये काम जो मैं आपसे मांग रहा हूं आप करेंगी, तो साल के अंत में you will be a writer of a book.
Thank you. I will note this down.
बस बिल्कुल।
So
मंत्र है, मंत्र।
मेरा नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन आपसे है कि जैसे कि you're from Patna.
जी जी।
And you are living in US right now. And there is a life that you've lived and the number of books that you've written. But in some small way, your home figures in your writing. how do you think your home figures in your writing, especially in your personal writing? That, for example, this trilogy is a lot personal to you. How does that? How does your home, Patna, Bihar, figure in your writing?
जी जी जी. अब इस किताब में ले लीजिए, there is mention, for example, of my father's death last year. So he died in a hospital in Patna. तो अब अगर जर्नल की ही बात है and my report on that, तो of course it comes in. And you know, it's sometimes मैंने शायद I can't very quickly on when we are on camera do a search. Magar, there is a great line by by the French Algerian writer Albert Camus that says that something about how every man's, by which he means every man or a woman, a story is often a long trek through 2 or 3 emotions. Yeah. उसका कहने का मतलब है कि कोई खास बहुत you're not playing with 200-300 stories. ये 2 या 3 कहानियां हैं जो आप ताउम्र you're turning over. Okay. And in my case, one of those stories is having had a childhood and youth in Patna. And another story is that of the move away from Patna. So I don't think I have written any book actually, that does not have something to do with Patna.
Yeah.
In that way, I have been faithful to my roots. At the same time, I have been attentive to the other routes, ROUTES, where the roads have opened and I have gone elsewhere, and sometimes tried to return. मैंने तो एक किताब पटना पर ही लिख दी है, A Matter of Rats. So that's how. And in a few days, I'm going, in 2 days, I'm going to a literary festival in Kerala. But once that is over, I will then go for a short visit to Delhi for a literary event, and then for many days in Patna, and then I'll have more to write about Patna.
Okay. Even the New Yorker, in their headline, the headline of your profile, they call you the translated man.
हाँ, सही है.
That's saying something about how you are still in touch with your, how English.
Yes. सही बात है.
Indian English writers, they either become completely removed or they are too much in India. But you're the translated man, so you're everywhere now.
हाँ, ये सही बात है. उस तरह से मैंने नहीं सोचा था, but you're right. जी. तो आप उस पे चाहती कि मैं भी टिप्पणी कर दूं?
हाँ.
Yeah. You know, मुझे on one hand, there should be something not wrong or odd, but something different about a writer who you're reading in translation. In other words, someone who has written in that language in the original should be one thing. Someone who has been translated, there should be something different.
Yes.
ये आप मानती हैं? Yeah. लगे कि हमेशा लगे कि एक हवा कुछ और है यहाँ पे. कुछ something is different.
वो थोड़ा सा जो nuance है वो कहीं दिखना चाहिए, otherwise वो पिछले लैंग्वेज की आइडेंटिटी एकदम से चली जाएगी.
बिल्कुल वही है. अब मैं वो रिकॉग्नाइज करता हूं. At the same time, I have to confess that मुझे लगता है कहीं ना कहीं मुझसे बेहतर जो राइटर्स हैं वो ट्रांसेंड करते हैं ये डिफरेंस, and they are able to occupy a level of universality that is just magical. अब हो सकता है मैं गलत हूं इस बात पे, लेकिन मैं सोचता हूं, फॉर एग्जांपल, मैं हमेशा ये बात कहता हूं अपने दोस्तों को, that Anton Chekhov writing about Russian lives.
Yeah.
Never worried, I'm sure, कि भैया इसको इलिनॉय में कैसे पढ़ेंगे, या फॉर दैट मैटर पटना में लोग कैसे पढ़ेंगे, यू नो. और फिर भी जब हम चेकऑफ को पढ़ते हैं तो हमें लगता है कि वो हम लोगों की भी बातें कर रहा है, या कम से कम मुझे ऐसा लगता है ना. तो मुझे लगता है कि भाई व्हाई नॉट एस्पायर टू दैट काइंड ऑफ यूनिवर्सैलिटी आल्सो. मगर यू आर राइट, मैं चेकऑफ डजंट नेम हिज कैरेक्टर्स मुरारी प्रसाद in order to appeal to Indian writers. He does not have Madam Chernovka eating samosas. उसकी अपनी स्पेसिफिसिटी वो मेंटेन किए रहता है. ये दूसरी बात है कि उसकी इमोशंस एंड कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स हमें लगती हैं जैसे कि यार दिस इज कुछ है इसमें,
Yeah, that's very interesting thought. इसके बारे में और सोच सकते हैं.
हाँ, अब जैसे कि एक एग्जांपल आपको देते हूँ. मैं कल ही एक अपने मित्र जिनका नाम मैं पहले ले चुका हूँ, अमित वर्मा, उससे बोल रहा था कि विक्रम सेठ को जो मैंने सुटेबल बॉय में पढ़ा ना, तो मुझे वाकई लगा कि यार ये किताब तो लगता है जैसे कि हिंदी में भी लिखी हुई है, इन अ सेंस, बिकॉज इट वाज नॉट. अक्सर आप इंडियन इंग्लिश वाले कुछ लेखकों को पढ़ती हैं तो इट सीम्स लाइक रिटन फॉर फॉरेन मार्केट. हाँ, लेकिन इनमें था कि भाई अंग्रेजी है, लेकिन वो अंग्रेजी हिंदी में भी हो सकती है, उर्दू में भी. इट हैड अ हिंदुस्तानी टच टू इट. इट हैड अ समथिंग आई लाइक्ड अबाउट इट. इट्स it belonged to our land in a certain wonderful way.
Your books also have the Indian ness to them, the English versions of them, but they also carry the universality that you're.
अरे वाह मैडम, क्या बात है. Yeah, you have a generous heart.
But they do. You're writing about your travels and your observations and everything. There is a report to it, which brings me to my question: how do you think your book adds to the question of identity, belonging, and most importantly, climate change? Since you've made so many observations here, some of them maybe our viewers would like to hear.
Sure. अब क्लाइमेट चेंज से शुरू करता हूँ, एंड दैट विल अलाउ मी टू स्पीक अबाउट द फर्स्ट कपल ऑफ इश्यूज यू हैव रेज्ड इन दैट क्वेश्चन. अब मान लीजिए यू आर इन अ टाउन कॉल्ड जोशी मठ, और जोशी मठ में गंगा, जहाँ गंगा अलकनंदा की जो पानी है, गंगा बनती है अलकनंदा एंड भागीरथी के मिलने से. एंड in the foundations there, अलकनंदा के बेसिन, इसमें आप हाइड्रो इलेक्ट्रिक प्रोजेक्ट्स जो बनाया जा रहा है टू जनरेट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, दीज आर जायंट प्रोजेक्ट्स. इससे वहां इस तरह की सब्सिडेंस हो रही है, जमीन में धसाई हो रही है कि द हाउसेस आर जस्ट क्रैकिंग एंड ब्रेकिंग अपार्ट, एंड पीपल have to then abandon their homes that they have built for themselves and their children. Now, so that is about climate change, in the sense that development policies pay no attention sometimes in the name of welfare. It is a search actually for profit for the people who have the money to do these construction projects, and the ministers and others who benefit from it. And so development के नाम पे destruction होती है. That is something to do with how our policies and the policies that determine our lives do not conform to a sustained examination of what benefits the people, the common masses. और मेरे लिए वो identity भी है, in the sense कि
is that, I have a follow-up question on that. Is that an India-specific observation, or would you say developing policies everywhere in the world don't focus on the outcome?
अब वो जरा that will be, it's certainly not limited to India, but ये भी कहना कि हर जगह ऐसा है would be too broad a generalization. But हमारे देश में it is particularly true, और हमारे राज्य में तो it's also true because so many bridges have fallen in Bihar. मैं तो अपनी बहन के यहाँ जा रहा हूँ तो I'll have great trepidation and nervousness in crossing some bridges, खासकर अगर बारिश हो जाए तो. तो और वो आइडेंटिटी की बात है कि भैया हम लोग वी से कि मेड इन इंडिया एंड दिस एंड दैट, और मेरा भारत महान. बट आई थिंक वी शुड, इन क्वेश्चंस ऑफ आइडेंटिटी, ट्राई टू बिकम अ लिटिल बिट मोर क्रिटिकल ऑफ मेकिंग नेशनलिस्ट क्लेम्स एंड वांट टू से कि भैया डेवलपमेंट फॉर whom and at what cost. किसको, let's have analyses of class and caste and gender and think कि भैया who is benefiting from this. तो मेरी किताब जो है, in trying to talk about, let's say Varanasi, that is sacred to Hindus, say कि भैया ये pollution जो हो रही है वहां पर क्यों हो रही है, how are we treating it, कौन उसको सफाई कर रहा है. And when we talk about various campaigns, are these development campaigns that benefit certain kind of tourists but condemn other people to a life of misery? So, of climate change, and the last point I'll say is that there's a chapter here called Many Words for Heat, Many Words for Hate. मैंने अपने दोस्त रविश कुमार से पूछा कि भाई अगर एस्किमोज में there are 50 words for snow, तो हम लोग के यहाँ जहाँ गर्मी इतनी ज्यादा है, why shouldn't Indians have more words for heat? And he shared this on his show and people sent in lots of words for heat. और रविश ने कहा अपने मोनोलॉग में कि if you forget the many words for heat in your own language, you will also forget the names of your neighbors or the fact that people of two different religions used to live peaceably together. You will also forget why you are beginning to forget. तो ये सब तो आइडेंटिटी से मेरा कोशिश है टू जॉइन इश्यूज ऑफ द पॉलिटिक्स ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट टू एनवायरनमेंट ऑफ पॉलिटिक्स, कि उधर ग्लेशियर्स भी मेल्ट हो रहे हैं और यहाँ पर हमारी सभ्यता में, हमारी कल्चर में क्या बदलाव आ रहा है. what are the changes in the ecology of our own living and our own lives and our own faith and our own loving. ये भी बात मैं उठा रहा हूँ सवाल.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
All right, Ayasi, namaskar.
Thank you.
चलिए, bye.